it's a waste of time. So at the end of the 2 years, there will be an election. They still have the money. They still have the power. So they will come back. And this is what we are afraid of.
There is the possibility because they are armed. They have this possibility of restricting the process. But you have seen yourself that in the case of Muhammad Saleh, after whatever he did, he gave up because there was international pressure. There was pressure from the United Nations. There was pressure, strong pressure from the US, and they gave up. So we have to continue trying to do in Yemen what we can, and don't forget that Hadi has got a lot of public support at the moment. This is the time when he can make serious decisions from this source of strength. So he can use that credibility before it vanishes, and hopefully solve a lot of problem while he's still high and people still support him.
One of the countries that keeps me quite busy at the moment is Somalia. One of the things that we're looking at there in terms of building a constituent assembly is the sort of interplay between how you build strong institutions of state and government while managing the role of traditional institutions like the clan structure in Somalia. You haven't really talked about sort of the tribal structures in Yemen, but how do you see that sort of interplay as you're trying to build these institutions in a relatively short space of time with the expectations of tribal leaders and so on?
You can see here I'm wearing a jambia. I am very tribal. I was just telling Megan, don't be fooled by this necktie. I believe very much in tribalism, and many people in Yemen do. Tribalism is very useful if it is managed properly, if it is not politicized, if it is not abused. It's a very healthy tribal system. But at the moment, how do we get out of what has happened to tribalism over the last 33 years? Yes, I agree. There is a serious problem there, especially since the tribes are still being funded from outside, and we know where, and internally they are being funded. We need to, this is something that we will have to evolve when the government is able to impose its law and order strength in the country, and show people going forward that the idea of tribal forces and all this is no longer a thing of the past. It's going to be a serious problem. I mean, the tribal system has been corrupted very badly for a very long time. I don't have ready answers for
I'm wondering how you think it would be best to engage them in this process, and so that they're seen as credible forces, not just as revolutionaries or protest leaders.
I am personally with some other people who are working very closely to encourage the youth, to bring the youth into the game. How we can do more there, I think we can do more by internationally to bring to, again, a lot of pressure from the international community to include the youth. I think we will be discussing this with people here in the US to how they can bring more influence on the government, on the president, to ensure that the youth are included, but also to keep the youth motivated. There is an element, there is a section of the youth that feels today that the revolution has taken a back step and they have to now forget it. It's not going forward. I think we need to keep the youth engaged and motivated, and unfortunately we have to keep them in the ground still, in the protest grounds. Their presence has to be there, and they will be. Eventually they will be participating in these dialogues.
First of all, thank you very much for the presentation you gave. It was really informative. Back to the youth, I want to ask what kind of guarantees the youth can ask for to guarantee their participation in the dialogue this time, because our fear is, and I talk as one of the youth in the revolution, our fear is to repeat the same scenario that happened in the National Council. When forming the National Council, we were excluded or or they gave some seats under the name of independent youth, where it was political parties member. We know that this time it's not any different. So what kind of guarantees the government can give that we will be included? I have another question, which is, in our history, we've always seen that nothing comes by consensus in Yemen. People tend not to agree more than to agree on one solution. You're familiar of what happened in the parliamentary elections. It's been postponed for so long, for over 7 years or 8 years, and they never get to agree on what kind of amendment or reforms they're doing. So when talking about the constitution or the dialogue committee, how do we assure that this time all the political actors in the country will come together and agree on one thing to move forward instead of just living this hassle? And this is what we started to do, is when the committee was formed, many other actors were provoked. So to what extent do you think they will be collaborative this time?
Well, as far as the guarantees for the youth, I think the youth can guarantee themselves that they organize. You know that our youth
Yes.
are here and there. We need to coordinate. The youth themselves, of course, have to take the leadership in getting this organized. We have to give support. Young people like me have to give support to the youth to get organized, and we're trying to do that. But in many instances, it is in fact proving difficult. I've seen this myself. When you've got youth who are completely on different pages on many issues. Youth who are independent, youth who are part of the political party system, and that kind of creates suspicion. So there is a lot of this. And as long as this continues, it's very difficult for anyone who is not among the youth to guarantee the youth anything, unless the youth themselves get organized. You need to get organized, we are there to help. We will help in any way we want the youth. Consensus on the other things, I think there is a lot today. You see political parties coming up every day in Yemen. I mean, we have had quite a rise in the number of political parties that are there. Does this show that there is more freedom in the political process, or does it show that there is more division in the political process? I don't know. But the best way to get the consensus, I think, is will be seen when we have had the dialogue, the national dialogue. At the end of the day, when the national dialogue takes place, whatever charter that comes out of the national dialogue will be the consensus. And that will be the document that we have all pledged ourselves to. The rest of it will be better.
We have time for one more. We have 1 minute, so we have time for one more question. There's still one out there on the floor.
The Iranian.
The Iranian. Talk about the Iranians. 50 seconds or less.
The Iranian role in Yemen is part of the overall region, I think. I mean, Iran wants a place on the table in everything in the region. They are a power to reckon with. We can deceive ourselves into ignoring that. Or we can face the reality that they are in power. They are in the region. So either we can try to exclude them from all the processes, and there will become mischief here and there. Or we can try to have a dialogue. I would advise our American friends to start talking more with their enemies rather than just their friends. When you have a problem with your enemies, you talk with your enemies. You don't just talk with your friends and isolate your enemies. That's a simple thing. And I think if Iran and the US can some way meet halfway in the difficulties and the challenges, we will all sleep better. So it's really unforgivable to you guys.
Well, with that, please join me in thanking Munir for a great candidate.
Thank you all for your participation. Please look at the page of TAWQ. Did you love this year?